Marriage Today presents The Power of Positive Communication by Jimmy Evans.
We're going to talk about the power of positive communication in marriage. Communication is the way we know people. I mean, you can't know a person in marriage unless you communicate. It's how you fall in love. It's how you become one. I mean, it's how we understand the other person's heart. It's how we talk about problems. It's how we resolve issues. It's how we talk about needs. It is so important. You know, when you're fighting an enemy, one of the things they want to do in war is to cut your communication lines. They don't want you communicating with each other, because once they cut your communication, they can confuse you and defeat you. So in marriage, the enemy does not want us to communicate, so he's always trying everything he can to violate and cut the communication lines within our marriages. And so I want to talk about just the importance of communication in marriage. And I'm going to talk about two things. The first thing I want to talk about is avoiding the common dangers and problems of communication in marriage. Just avoiding the common problems, and there are two. One is not understanding the power of words, and this is very important. Now, you know, we live in a smart aleck society, a very vulgar, smart alecky society where people use words very carelessly. In fact, when you watch television, this has gotten worse. It's gotten much worse since I was a kid, and just like every year it gets worse. The profanity, there was a report that came out this week that was talking about the nudity and profanity on primetime television. You can hear just about any word you could ever want to hear, you know, on television in prime time, because our society is becoming more vulgar. But Proverbs 18 says this: a man's stomach shall be satisfied from the fruit of his mouth. From the produce of his lips he shall be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. And let me just tell you something, that is the truth. Words are nuclear. God came to a void world and created a paradise with this. The power of life is in your mouth. Every great marriage is full of positive words, and every bad marriage either has bad words or no words. Words give life, but words can kill. And let me just tell you something. God has a plan for your life and your marriage, and Satan has a plan for your life and your marriage. And here's God's plan for your life. He wants to use your mouth to give life to you and everyone around you, and He wants to use your mouth to heal and to build everything around you. God created this world with His words. We create our world with our words. And if we don't like our world, we need to understand our words have the power of life, and they are nuclear. They're not incidental, they're nuclear. But the devil has a will for your life and your marriage, and he wants to use your mouth to destroy yourself and other people. And we decide who we're going to partner with. I was the devil's partner because I didn't understand the power of words, and I've never been at a loss for words, and that's not a good thing. I know that my mouth operates faster than my brain. It gets me in trouble. But as a young man, I was articulate. That's my gift. I mean, God called me to speak. I was articulate. I was never lost for words, and I was very vulgar. I used every cuss word in the book before I got saved. And when you made me mad, when I didn't like you or something like that, you were in trouble. And I would just unleash my mouth. And even after I got saved, and Karen and I were married, I destroyed my wife and my marriage with my mouth. When I got angry, when I got frustrated, even when I stopped the cursing and all that, I still was very negative. I was very sarcastic. I could become very hateful. And when our marriage, when we got to the night where we almost separated, and I went in and apologized to Karen for the first time for all the nonsense that I had done, she said, "Your mouth is the worst thing you've ever done to me." And I'll just tell you, that's just the way that it is. You know, verbal abuse can be worse than physical abuse. As bad as physical abuse is, verbal abuse can actually leave worse scars than physical abuse because of the nuclear effect of words in our life. And so we live in a smart alecky society where words are very casually spoken. Very negative, very hateful words are casually spoken. But if you're going to communicate effectively in marriage, you have to understand that words are nuclear. Now here's what Jesus said about words. This is how serious it is. Matthew 12, I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. And so someone might say words are meaningless. Who cares? It's my mouth. I'll use it any way I want to. Every idle word, Jesus said, every idle word that men may speak, it'll be brought back in the day of judgment. Listen, it's being recorded. Okay, here are 5 common deceptions concerning words and communication. These are 5 things that people think. The first is words are evaporative. That when I speak, the words just evaporate and they're gone. They're sound waves, and as soon as the sound wave stops, it's gone. You're devastated over something that someone spoke to you 10 or 20 years ago. Words don't evaporate. They're recorded in heaven, and they're lodged in people's hearts. And I remember when I was a kid, I remember the encouragers in my life, and I remember the people who spoke destiny over me. But I also remember the hateful things that were spoken to me as a kid. And they wounded my spirit. And I didn't know how to deal with them, and they stay with you. They don't go away. Words don't evaporate. When you're finished being smart alecky, when you're finished being sarcastic, when you're finished being hateful, people are affected by those words. The second deception is words are non-revealing. In other words, you say, well, I didn't really mean that. That's not really my heart. No, you really did. Because Matthew 12 says this. Jesus says, either make the tree good, that's our hearts, and the fruit, that's our words, or make the tree bad, our heart bad, and the fruit bad. For a tree is known by its fruit. Brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. A good man, out of the good treasure of his heart, brings forth good things. An evil man, out of the evil treasure, brings forth evil things. You know your heart by your mouth. And so, let me just give you some examples. Sarcasm means anger and disrespect. It just does. Teasing, Karen and I tease a lot. There's nothing wrong with teasing because teasing has no victim. Teasing's funny and there is no victim. Sarcasm has a victim. And sarcasm is a form of anger. It's anger. When you're cutting each other down, when you're being sarcastic, I'm angry. There's anger in here, and because I haven't dealt with it properly, I'm going to use my mouth to bully you and get you back sarcastically so I can get away with it. Hatefulness, bitterness, and cruelty means unforgiveness. When you're hateful, it just means you haven't forgiven a person. It's unforgiveness. Disrespect means devaluation and taking a person for granted when you're disrespectful. Silence means separation. I'm checking out. I'm punishing you. There's something wrong. Abusive speech means a lack of faith in God and a desire to punish and control. Profanity means a lack of respect for God, others, and the lack of respect for the power of words. Your words are telling about you. You can't say they're non-revealing. Jesus said a tree is known by its fruit. A heart is known by its words. Either make your heart good or your heart bad. Either make your words good or your words bad. But out of the abundance of your heart you speak. So don't say, that's not my heart. It is your words are your heart. Tell yourself the truth. Listen to what's coming out of your mouth. And when you hear bad words coming out of your mouth, you're saying, I need to deal with my heart. There's something wrong with my heart. And it is. That's what Jesus was saying there to the Pharisees. Number 3, words are substitutionary. I can just use words and not follow through. And when I was an idiot husband with doing everything other than loving my wife, Karen would say, you don't love me. And I would say, I do too love you. But I didn't show it. I do too love you. And she'd say, everything else comes before me. Work comes before me. Golf comes before me. Your friends come before me. And I'd say, no, they don't. But they did. But to me, I could just say it and not mean it. Words can't replace action. Words are a part of the equation, but you can't substitute words for real action. If I say I love you, I need to follow through on that. If you're first, I need to follow through on that. Number 4, words are powerless. I would say something, but it wouldn't matter. I would say something. It wouldn't help. You say, my marriage is just falling apart, and why don't you talk to your spouse? Why don't you start praising your spouse? Why don't you start praying? Why don't you do that? It wouldn't matter. The words of life are in my mouth. Did you understand? They have found the smallest particle in the world, and it's called a quark. It's the smallest particle. Scientists have found it. You know what a quark is? It's a sound wave. The Bible says that God spoke in a void, and everything we see came into existence with the spoken word. Now, they have proven that plants respond to the human voice. And if you speak kindly to plants, they respond to that. Your body will respond to your words. You can curse your own body. You can speak over your body and just say, well, this old stinking body, old bad leg of mine, and just, oh, that's no good, like that. Bless your body. Speak to it and say, come to life. I bless my knees. I bless my joints. I bless my body. I bless my mind. I bless myself. Because when you're speaking life or death. You can curse your family. You can curse your marriage. Or you can bring life to it and just bless your wife, bless your husband. You say, well, I would say something good and it wouldn't matter. Really? You don't believe there's the power of life in your mouth. You don't believe that you can resurrect a dead marriage with your mouth. I killed my wife with my mouth, and I brought her back to life with my mouth. God convicted me of the way that I spoke to my wife because I was a smart aleck, I was angry, I was dominant, and I used my mouth to bully my wife, and I repented, and I changed this mouth to a place of death, to a place of life, and I saw my wife blossom like a rose. And now she's a lioness of God. And I saw that happen through my words. I'd say something, but it wouldn't matter. Don't tell yourself that. You've got the power of life within your mouth. And you can heal or you can kill. You can kill it or bring it back to life. It's all within the power of your words. And here's another one. Bad words will bring good results. This is another deception. This is what I believed. Karen just needs a good scolding. She just needs a good cussing out. And in all my years of marriage counseling, here's what I've never heard before in my life. I've never had a person come into my office and say, Jimmy, our marriage was just going south, and my spouse the other night just cussed me up one side and down the other. And man, it helped. I mean, I just, right in the middle of them, the light just came on. And they just called me every name in the book, and right in the middle of their tirade, I thought, they're right. And thank you so much for loving me enough for cussing me out. I've never heard that before in my life, but here's what I have heard. What they've said to me has devastated me. And all my passion and all my respect for them has left because of the way that they've spoken to me. Over and over and over. I did it to my wife, and I've seen men and women do it equally. These are the deceptions that we tell ourselves, but in order to succeed in communication, you have to understand this thing is nuclear. This thing is disproportionate. The power of life and death is in your mouth. It doesn't say that about any other area of your body. Words are nuclear. That's what makes us like God, by the way. That's what separates us from the animal kingdom. We have the ability to speak life and to create with our mouths. That's what makes us like God. And so understand, if you're going to communicate, be very careful. Be very careful. Because this thing is loaded and it will go off. And you can use it for good or you can use it for bad. But our society is destroying itself through a mouth gone crazy. Okay. Number 2 issue of disarming destructive things in marriage and understanding the problems with words, problems in communication, is not understanding the difference between men and women. Because in communication, men and women are very different. We're just created different by God. And let me give you some examples, and that is one of a woman's most important needs is the need for communication. Now, this is not true for men. It's not saying that men don't want to talk. I love communicating with Karen, but communication is as important to women as sex is to men. And that's what I say to men all the time, for men to understand it. Because men understand sex. They understand how powerful our need for sex is. Well, Karen, when we got married, I didn't like to talk. I mean, I like to talk a little, but she just wanted to talk all the time. And she wanted to talk about everything. And when I came home from work and stuff, I thought she was nosy, And I just thought, I don't want to feed that monster. And where'd you go? Who'd you see? What'd they say? How'd you feel about that? I was like, this is a boundary violation. And you need general information about where I've been and what I've done, but my feelings are my feelings. But that wasn't good with her. But one of the things that healed our marriage is when I started talking to Karen and understand this is what connects her to me. This is what connects her to my world. And what she needs is patient, loving communication. So here's my little speech. And you may have heard my little speech before. Here's my little speech. Okay, so women typically don't need sex as much as men. But what I say to women is be more sexual than you feel. Your husband has the need for sex. You have the gift of sex. And God gave you that gift so that it would draw your husband back to you constantly. Don't despise that. It's a precious thing that keeps your husband coming back to you, and it's important to meet that need. Be more sexual than you feel. That's my little speech to women. Here's my little speech to men. Okay. I just got through saying something really wonderful to your wives that I hope you give extra when you leave, because that was a biggie. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Here's my little speech to you. Who cares if you don't want to talk? You talk. I just told your wife to be more sexual than she feels. I'm telling you, you talk more than you feel. And you come home, and when she wants to talk, you talk. And don't give her headlines. You open up. You do it with your friends. You do it with her. And she says, "What'd you do today?" You don't say, "Nothing. Filled up my truck. Went to work." You say, "Honey, I woke up this morning at 6:37. I didn't actually open my eyes, but I came into consciousness. I was feeling a little insecure about my meeting with Bob." And just that's what she wants to hear. She wants to hear. And she needs every now and then, get a nail, just stand here like this, poke yourself and cry. It's big points. Big points. And I drove down the street and the dog had been run over. Like she goes, "Oh, really? Oh, really? I love it. Oh, you cried." So, give it up. Give it up right there. And so that's it. So it's not your need. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you don't need to talk at all, but it's not your need, but it's your wife's need. So women are different in this area, and men need to respect their wives' need for open, patient, honest, emotional communication. And it's wonderful. I just tell you, I've done it for years with Karen. I like it as much as she does now. I don't know if I'm kind of getting girly or not, but I'm just telling you. But here's another difference between men and women in communication. Men are emotionally modest. Women are emotionally immodest. Now this is a big, men are physically immodest, and women are very physically modest. And so when women have sex, they are very modest. And so they want, doors shut, lights off, children anesthetized. It's a careful environment, because they're very physically modest. Men, just anybody anywhere. So, but it's a difference. But men are emotionally modest. Now, we don't talk like you talk. If you're ever in a restaurant, you have a table of women over here and a table of men over here, listen to the way they talk. And you listen to the women talking and they're saying, "Well, did you know that Barbara is going for a real difficult time with Sam?" "Really? Oh, yes, she called me the other day and said she's just devastated and said this and this and this and this and this." And they're talking about relationships and they're talking about feelings. They're talking about real stuff. That's this table. The table of men over here says, "Bob, did you get your muffler fixed?" "Yeah, I did. And I'm going to go to the Cowboy game the other night." "Really? Did you go hunting? What'd you kill last weekend?" "Well, I killed a 7-point buck." And that's the way men, how'd you feel when you killed that deer, Bob? "I felt real good. I felt hungry." We're not going to talk about our emotions. We don't do that. We're emotionally modest. So women, when they have sex, because they're physically modest, very, very private, don't tell anybody, don't talk about it. This is between us, dark room, locked door, everything's very careful. That's the way we talk. That's the way men talk. See, women are emotionally modest. They'll just say anything to anybody. They're just unguarded. That's just the way God made you. We're not that way. If you want a man to talk, if you ever tell somebody what we said, we'll never tell you anything again. We don't like that. And so you get us in a room, you lock that door, anesthetize those children, and we're going to sit down and talk in a very careful environment. And when we open our heart, you be careful how you respond, because we're very tender on the inside. We really are. Men don't open if you're sarcastic, if you're judgmental, if you're mean-spirited, anything like that, a man will shut down on you, because this is the Holy of Holies. Women are tough. Women can argue with each other. When a man's heart rate goes above 100, he can't hear. We just can't do it. We just zone out. It's like women are so tough emotionally, and women can just talk about their emotions and just argue with each other like that. And men are just like grabbing guns, and we're just like, you talk to me like that. Women are tougher than men emotionally. It's just the truth. The way you talk to your husband is keep him calm. Is you honor him, you respect him, and you let him know every word you're saying to me is sacred, and I will not share it, and I will not take opportunity with it, and I won't use it against you later. We're different than you are. Ladies I have the greatest respect for women in the way God made you, but you need to understand, we're just not that way. And even to this day sometimes with Karen, we'll be talking or something like that. It's just hard for women to understand the way we're wired. And so I will open up, but I will not open up in the same environment that Karen is willing to be opened up in, because I'm emotionally modest. That doesn't mean I won't talk. It just means it's a different environment. Here's another difference between men and women. We hear through our deepest needs. Now, this is a huge, huge issue. Listen to what I'm saying. A man's deepest need is the need for honor. This is our mega need, the need for respect. This is the need above all needs with men, even above sex, is we want to be respected. And it's not egotistical, it's the way God made us. We want to know that we're a good man. We want to know that you respect us. That's big, big deal for us. Women's number one mega need is security. They want to know that their husband is tuned into them, and sacrificially, he will meet their needs. Sacrificially, to his own hurt. When a woman knows that her husband's tuned in, and to his own hurt, he will put her first and meet her needs and the needs of the family, she's in heaven, okay? So when we communicate with each other, we have to encrypt our language with their need. An example is this. When a man, I didn't realize this about Karen, but see, she can decode my language very quickly, okay? She knows if I'm speaking security or not. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. It doesn't matter what the conversation is. Here's what she wants to hear me say, encrypted in this. I care, and I'm tuned in, and I'll do whatever it takes. My heart is turned toward you and our family. I'll say no to anything else, and I care about how you feel. When I'm talking with that tone in my voice, Karen's very calm and very reasonable. But when she hears a tone in me that says, I'm disconnected, something else is more important than you, I'm checked out, she's on high alert. And I can't calm her down. And I can sit there and say, what are you so upset about? Like that. She said, because this, I don't understand. My heart's not there. I've got everything I say to her. If it's going to be successful, it's got to communicate security. I'm tuned in, it's okay. But I'm different. When she talks to me, and I've said this to Karen, especially early in our marriage, I said, the way you say it's more important to me than what you're saying. So whatever you're going to say to me, if you want me to hear it, you need to say it in the right way. Here's what a man needs to hear. I believe in you. You're a good man. I love you. You're the best. I respect you. And you can talk about the kids, you can talk about work, you can talk about spirituality, you can talk about your needs, you can talk about your hurts or fears or anything like that. But you come with your guns loaded and you make us feel now as though you don't respect us and you don't believe in us. We can't hear. It's a jamming frequency. When men are speaking insecurity, it's a jamming frequency, and women just can't hear because their alarm is going off. When a woman comes at a man and makes him feel like, you're a bad man, you're not a good man, I don't believe in you, it's a jamming frequency. It doesn't matter what you're saying, and it doesn't matter if you're absolutely 100% right. You've made it much harder for me to listen because of the way you're talking to me. So if you're going to have successful communication, remember, your spouse isn't like you. They don't need what you need, and they don't hear like you hear. If you're a man speaking to a woman, talk security, and you will succeed in communicating with that sister. If you're talking to a man, speak the language of respect. You can say anything. You're an equal. But say it with respect in the tone of your voice, and you'll succeed in talking to that man. Let me say this. Same is true of little girls and little boys. If you're going to talk to a daughter or a granddaughter and successfully communicate with her, she needs to hear the language of security. If you've got a little boy or a young man that you're trying to influence, you have to speak honor to him because he's just a little man and she's just a little woman. Any one of the opposite sex that you're communicating with, you have to understand they're different and they have to be talked to in that way. Let me finish this message, just 5 minutes. Let me tell you the 5 standards of successful communication in marriage. Those are the common problems that people understand. These are just standards that you have to use in successful communication. The first is caring. The first standard is I care. Now, here's a very simple principle. You can't communicate with a person who doesn't care. It's just impossible. And if someone doesn't care about you, you don't have a chance in the world of effectively communicating with that. And so you know when someone cares. And here's how you communicate care. It's body language. Your body language tells your spouse. It tells others if you care or not. Your countenance. The way you look at them when they're communicating. If you're rolling your eyes, if you're turning your head away, that's not good. But if you're looking at them and you're making a good response and you're listening to what they're saying, you're feeding back, say, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I hear that. And like that tells a person that you care. That's number one. You have to care. And you have to communicate care to communicate. Number 2 is praise. The Bible says we enter His courts with thanksgiving and we enter into His courts with praise. God will never let a negative person into His presence. He won't. We enter into God's presence with praise, but remember, we're made in the image of God. This is the Holy of Holies. You can talk to me in a disrespectful tone, but you're not getting in here. And you'll never influence me till you get in here. And the same is true of men and women. This is universal. If I'm going to ever be successful in communicating with Karen, I have to begin with a positive tone, and I have to praise her. Negativity destroys marriages. You can say negative things, but you have to be careful how you say them. And you earn your right to say those by saying a lot of positive things. But praise means this. When you come to me and you praise me, and you focus on my strengths and don't become critical and focus on my weakness, I'll open my courts to you, and that means my heart of hearts. You enter into my gates with thanksgiving, and you enter into my courts with praise because I'm made in the image of God. And when you become critical or negative, man or woman, you're not going to get into my heart. And we're not going to be intimate. We're not going to have a good marriage. We're not going to successfully communicate till we're communicating on a heart level. You can talk to my ear any way you want to. That's called noise. But if you're going to communicate with my heart, it is the Holy of Holies, and I'm not opening the gates to you until you praise me. And praise is a discipline that keeps us focused on what is right. Praise gets you to remember why you fell in love with that individual. And when praise leaves, criticism always comes because there's no such thing as a void. You don't have a marriage where there's no praise and no criticism. When the positive goes, the negative comes in. So we keep the negative away by positive. Focus on positive things. And by the way, when people argue, and this is proven in research, a conversation never rises above the level of the first 3 minutes. Never. When you start a conversation negatively, by accusing, by criticizing, by coming at your spouse aggressively, you have doomed the communication, and you need to stop it and walk away and come back in an hour or two and apologize and start again. Because you don't start a conversation by accusing and being negative. You start a conversation by saying, I love you and we're on the same team. And I'm committed to our relationship and I'm glad I married you. And I want to talk to you about my feelings. And I want to talk to you about some things that are important, but I want you to know how much I love you. And when you start a conversation with praise and in a positive way, it's going to be a good conversation. But a conversation never rises above the level of the first 3 minutes. We need to be positive. Number 3, standard is truth. We need to speak the truth to each other. Now we need to be careful how we do it. The Bible says in Proverbs 3:3, bind mercy and truth to your neck and write them on the tablet of your heart. And then Ephesians 4 says, speaking the truth in love, we grow up into all aspects into Him. Mercy without truth is a cheerleader without a team. Truth without mercy is surgery without anesthesia. Truth without mercy is mean, and mercy without truth is meaningless. We need both of them. We need to be kind in what we say, but we need to speak the truth. We need to give each other the right to speak the truth. We need to have an atmosphere of truth. All dysfunctional families either have no communication, they're silent, or they just don't talk about the truth. There's an white elephant standing in the middle of the room and nobody talk about it. That's what a dysfunctional family is. A functional family says, we're going to talk about the truth. We're going to talk about our feelings. We're going to talk about real issues in our relationship, but we're going to do it in a loving way. And so give your spouse the right to tell the truth and you tell the truth. And be careful how you do it, but have a truthful relationship. That's where intimacy comes from. Number 4 is faith. This is a standard in communication. You have to have faith. Without faith, you become mean. In fact, 1 Peter 3 talks about women being able to change their husbands without a word as he observes your chaste and respectful behavior, and it talks about there the gentle and quiet spirit. A gentle and quiet spirit is not a mousy spirit. A gentle and quiet spirit is a woman who has faith that when she speaks that God's on her side. I don't have to be the enforcer. I've got God on my side. I used to bully Karen verbally. After I repented, I would say something to Karen and I would become forceful with her. And one time Karen said to me, Jimmy, I wish that I could just take a recording of what you say and play it back to you, and you would realize the way you talk to me. This is what I said. I don't talk to you bad. I don't agree with that. And I was having a quiet time one morning, and in an instant of time, the Lord healed me. I was having a quiet time one morning, and I read Ephesians 5, and it said, Jesus washes his bride in the washing of water with the word. And I saw in my heart Jesus with this water pouring it over my head, and I was filthy. I was a filthy bride. And what I knew in an instant of time is Jesus was so patient and gentle with me, and he was not in a hurry to clean me up, and it would take a lifetime. Jesus was so precious the way he was washing me with the word. And the next thing that I saw was me with a fire hose hosing Karen down. And she was all blown back, and I was just sitting there. And the Lord said to me, Jimmy, I'm patient and kind in the way that I communicate with you. And you're forceful with Karen because you don't have any faith in me. And that day I walked into the kitchen, and this was in the house that we lived in before we lived in the house we live in now. And I walked in the kitchen, and I was frustrated with Karen about something. And I walked in the kitchen, and typically I would have been forceful. And I said, hey, Karen, this and this and this. And she said, okay. And I said, is it okay? Did you understand what I'm talking about? Yes, Jimmy, I understand what you're talking about. Okay. Does that mean you're going to change it, or you're going to do something about it? I'm going to tell you, okay, good. Well, I'm glad. And I walked out, and she's frustrated, and I'm frustrated. That would be me typically. That day I walked in, I said, hey, this and this and this. And she said, okay. And I said, okay. And I hugged her and walked out. That was not me. And then I started doing that regularly. So several days later, she said, I noticed what you're doing. And I like it. The difference between the old Jimmy and the new Jimmy is the new Jimmy had faith that if what I was saying was right, that God would be the enforcer. You have every right to say anything you want to say. Are you the enforcer, or is God the enforcer? Because if you have faith that God's the enforcer, you're going to say it and walk away and pray and be at peace. You're going to have a gentle and quiet spirit, whether you're a man or a woman. But if you're the enforcer, you're going to nag, you're going to browbeat, you're going to punish, you're going to bully, and you're going to divide the relationship. Faith. I have faith that if I speak the truth, that the power of God is going to take it and change your life. God's big enough to change you, and if I'm wrong, He's big enough to change me. That's the fourth standard. And the last standard is surrender. I surrender my mouth to God. This mouth belongs to God, and it will be used by God. Now, it's an interesting thing. I was a bully, I was a bad husband, and my mouth was destroying my family. But I surrendered my mouth to God, and it's interesting. I make my living speaking and helping people with my mouth. My mouth is my occupation. When I surrendered it. God will use your mouth more than any other part of your body to help other people. But it has to be surrendered. Remember, the devil wants to use your mouth to destroy. God wants to use your mouth to build and heal. And you make the decision who's going to use your mouth, but it has to be surrendered. And in a good marriage, this isn't my mouth to use as I please. This is God's mouth to build my spouse, to build my marriage, to build my children, to build a legacy, to build a ministry, and to be used for the kingdom of God, to expand the kingdom of God. This thing's disproportional. The power of life and death is in this thing. I've got to be careful with it. And the devil wants to use it to kill. I will not let him do that. I'm going to let God use it to build.
This concludes Session 5. Please continue with Financial Management in Marriage, the next teaching in this series.
Marriage Today is devoted to helping couples thrive in strong, fulfilling marriages and families. Led by Jimmy and Karen Evans, Marriage Today touches millions of lives through online outreach, extensive resources, television broadcast, and its new Rock Solid Churches program, which will help launch or enhance your church's marriage ministry. Get to know what we're about. Find out more at marriagetoday.com.